Here we go again, Bulls fans. Bleacher Report said that it is likely Zach LaVine is traded this season. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to be breaking it all down here on today's edition of the Bulls Report. My name is Patrick Seatman. Welcome in. And obviously we are in the complete dog days of the NBA offseason. So a lot of this is just us chopping it up, talking about our Bulls. And, Bleacher Report gave us something to talk about as they said Zach LaVine is likely to be traded. This is what they came on to say at first in the article. They said if Chicago remains in that bad to mediocre range a couple of months into the 2023-2024 season, it'll have to start thinking about breaking up that core. In that circumstance, LaVine will almost certainly have the highest trade value. And I do think a fire sale could be potentially coming for the Bulls this upcoming year. Actually, for all you Chicago Cubs fans watching this, I think the Bulls are in very similar positions to where the Cubs were a couple years ago when during that trade deadline, when they were struggling, they shipped off Chris Bryant, Javi Baez, Anthony Rizzo. I think the Bulls could be in a very similar situation because let's just say the Bulls are sitting there, NBA trade deadline's a week away, and they're 500, 5 games below 500. I think it's very likely that they say, hey, we're moving off DeMar, we're moving off Vooch, and, maybe they could be moving off Zach LaVine as well. Bleacher Report carried on to say this about the Bulls, kind of just overall struggles over the past couple of years. They said the Chicago Bulls front office can reasonably point to the ongoing Lonzo Ball injury saga as the reason for the team's mediocrity, but it doesn't seem like that will end anytime soon. Carried on to say, and over the 2 seasons since DeMar DeRozan was acquired, Chicago is thoroughly uninspiring, minus 1.7 points per 100 possessions when he, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vučević are all on the floor. The Bulls are an even worse, minus 2.6 when those three play without Lonzo. And that's why I just at this point, just admit you messed up and move on. If you are a minus 2.6 points with Vooch, DeRozan, and LaVine all on the floor per 100 possessions, that's bad. You are a bad basketball team. I think it's just one of those things where it's you look yourself in the mirror and say, we messed up. This whole Big Three experiment did not work. The most we got out of it was one first-round playoff victory versus the Milwaukee Bucks when DeMar DeRozan, frankly, had to put the team on his back that game, and it took a heroic performance out of him. But overall, this Big Three, it just doesn't work. They just don't mesh well. They just don't really, they just don't complement each other's games well whatsoever. So Zach LaVine could be one of those names moved. Maybe he'll be shipped to the New York Knicks. I think the Knicks are my number one team that you guys should be looking out for as a team that could be looking to strike when the iron's hot, when Zach LaVine could possibly be traded. Listen, they might be looking, they need another combo guard next to Jalen Brunson, and maybe LaVine could be that guy. A similar spot would be the Sacramento Kings. I think they're a team that could be hitting up the Bulls over LaVine. They had a great year last year. Pair him up with De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis. I think maybe the Kings could be saying, we already had one of the best offenses in the league last year. Let's take it to another level and add LaVine. And then actually maybe the Indiana Pacers could be a team as well. They have Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, Buddy Hield. I loved what they did in the draft and getting Jarris Walker, who I think is going to be a great complementary piece next to Tyrese Halliburton. But maybe they could be saying, we could pair up Halliburton and LaVine, make one of the best offensive backcourts in the entire Eastern Conference. They're a sneaky, sneaky team to keep your eyes out for. And then obviously Philadelphia. Who really knows what's going on in Philly right now? With the whole Joel Embiid, James Harden, Daryl Morey drama. But maybe they could be a team that could be looking at the Bulls and saying, hey, let's go pair up LaVine, no matter what it costs, pair him and Joel Embiid. Could you imagine the NBA Finals, huge hypothetical here of Jamal Murray and Jokic versus Zach LaVine and Joel Embiid. My personal just basketball love, I would love to see that happen. So keep your eyes out on for Philly, maybe striking when the iron's hot as well and getting LaVine, to Philadelphia. But then also the Miami Heat. Let's just say they strike out on the Damian Lillard sweepstakes, and they're midway through the year, and they're just like, you know what? We need that extra score to get us over the hump. Maybe it's the Heat. Maybe they offer you Tyler Hero and some picks, and you send LaVine to Miami. But these are my top 5 teams that I've had for a while here, of teams that could trade for Zach LaVine. I think if he's getting traded, it's going to be either one of those 5 teams. But I'll make this the pinned comment on today's video because this is a question that I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. Will Zach LaVine finish the season a Chicago Bull? Give me a Y for yes or give me an N for no down in the comment section. YouTube's going to throw an ad break your way. Sit back, let it play, and let me know. Will Zach LaVine be a Chicago Bull at the end of next season? Y for yes, N for no. Now, can the Bulls build around Zach LaVine? We're going to shift this conversation, totally switching it up right now. So right now in this hypothetical, and we're going to talk about it, I'm going to say the Bulls, let's just say they're bad. Next NBA trade deadline comes around, 5 games below 500. They're saying, let's blow it up. But can they rebuild around Zach LaVine? So in this hypothetical, I'm just saying the Bulls, they keep LaVine, but they move off DeRozan and they move off Vučević. So that's going to be breaking down. I'm going to give you guys the pros and cons on this. The pro of keeping LaVine, even during the rebuild, there's no doubt. He is an elite offensive talent. I think he's been one of the more underrated pure bucket getters we've had in the NBA over the past 4 seasons. I mean, his numbers are absolutely ridiculous. From an efficiency standpoint, from a productivity standpoint, no matter which way you look at this, LaVine is truly one of the best offensive players in the league. I mean, the dude shot over 37.5% from deep over the last 4 years. The efficiency always sitting around 50% and maintaining around 25 points per game. A true 3-level scorer. Get to the bucket, get to his mid-range, get to this 3-point shot. I think he's an elite offensive talent. That's just a pro on why you would want to keep him. But a con on why you wouldn't want to keep LaVine if you're going into a full rebuild, he does by far have the highest trade value on the Bulls. And, listen, in terms of the Bulls trade pieces, obviously LaVine's probably the top dog, and then you got Vučević, and then you got DeRozan, and you could throw in guys like maybe Kobe White, maybe like a Torrey Craig or Javon Carter if the Bulls are really bad and they want to, move on. But Vučević, probably going to get a first and maybe a player for him. DeMar on his expiring deal, I would hope you could get a first for him. But LaVine is truly the only player on the Bulls where I think you could get multiple first-round picks and maybe a young player at next year's trade deadline. So that's a con. Listen, he's got the highest trade value on the team. And if you go into a rebuild, you're going to want picks and young players. And trading LaVine he would get you the most picks and young players. But my second pro for LaVine, I think he can truly be a number 2 on the title team. He can't be a 1. We've already seen that go down, but he can really be a 2. And if you would ever, like I mentioned at the beginning of today's video, if you would pair him up with a guy like Joel Embiid, I think they can no doubt win a title. And I think they would be the favorite in the East if they would pair up together. But, listen, I think no doubt he can be a 2 on a championship team. We just saw Jamal Murray do it, and I think LaVine is, probably on the same level as Murray in terms of talent-wise. I would probably choose LaVine over Murray if I had to, but very similar players those two are. So I think he could definitely be a 2 on a title team. And then a con. You wouldn't be embracing the full-on tank. I get it if you want to start this rebuild and everything. You're going to want to, get as much draft picks and as much, players that you can to kind of, fully embrace this tank. But if you wouldn't move off LaVine, he's good enough to win you at least 30 games a year. Even if you have a terrible roster around him, you're not going to be one of the worst teams in the league. So that's a con to this. Yes, if you were going to go full rebuild mode, full tank mode, you would want some bad players on the Bulls next season. LaVine's not a bad player. He's good enough to win you a certain amount of games, so that's another con for it. Then another pro, listen, if you keep LaVine during this rebuild, I think you keep fans engaged. There's no doubt LaVine is a walking highlight reel. Dating back to his days at UCLA and dating back to his days in Minnesota where he started off his NBA career. He was a highlight reel any single time he stepped on the floor. And if the Bulls were going full tank mode without LaVine, I don't think he would be really selling a lot of seats. But if you would keep him, I think you would keep a lot of fans in the stands, per se. So those are my pros and cons for keeping LaVine if the Bulls were to go full rebuild mode. But overall, I think the Bulls are going to keep him. I do think he's going to be a Bull at the end of next season. But, it's just going to come down to see how the Bulls perform this year. As always, you guys can give me a follow on Twitter at PatSeeps right there. I'll make sure to put that link for you guys in the comment section and the description of today's show. Overall, I think the Bulls keep LaVine. It's just going to come down to that NBA trade deadline. So thank you guys so much for watching today's show. We'll see you guys next time. As always, go Bulls.